I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Ashley Bray. I am the program director here at BroadFutures. Thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. We are super excited to talk about our fall strengths program. But before I kind of get into the weeds, I want to introduce our president and CEO and co-founder, Carolyn Jepson, who I want her to just kind of say a few words about who we are and what we do, and then we'll introduce the rest of the staff.
Good morning. We're an intimate group here this morning. We may have some other people popping in, but we want to get started on time. So thank you for coming. We started BroadFutures 7 years ago. We spent a year of research, so we've been running programs for 6 years. And this March, during the COVID pandemic, we made the decision to move our existing program remotely, and so our internships continued in a remote capacity. And then for the summer, we moved the whole thing remotely, and we just are focusing on training, so career and college readiness. And we finished our program a couple weeks ago for the summer, and it was really successful, and there seemed to be such a need in our community for this type of program that we are going to run one again this fall. And I'm just thrilled with how it ran. I'm so happy with our supportive staff who has completely risen to the occasion of doing our program online, which really kind of goes against our whole mission, which is to create in-person experiences and communities. So well, I'm going to let them talk about it, but we've been able to really mimic that same community online. So thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Before we dive in to the PowerPoint and questions, I want to introduce our team. So our Director of Program Support, Lori Thomas.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm excited to have this information session and share with you what we do. I, as the Director of Program Support, am also the ADHD Executive Function Coach along with Ashley Bray, and we focus on executive functions, helping you really understand where your strengths are in that category and then where the challenges are and workarounds. So that's kind of going to be what I'm discussing a little bit later in our presentation and how we do that. So I will turn it over to Alexa Wydans, our Senior Associate and mentor.
Sorry, I'm muted. Hi, I'm Alexa Wydans. I'm the Senior Program Associate and one of the mentors here at BroadFutures. I've been at BroadFutures for around 3 years, and I think I've been a mentor for 8 programs, if I'm counting correctly. One fully virtual, so looking forward to another virtual one as well, and it's nice to meet you all. And I will turn it over to Carol.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carol Trevey. I graduated from UVA in 2019 and joined the BroadFutures team right after that. And so I have been here for about a year now, serving as a program associate and mentor. And so I have been through 3 programs, 1 fully virtual. So I'm super excited for the fall program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will be hearing from our staff a little bit later and talking a little bit about their roles in this virtual kind of space, but I'm going to ask Alexa to go ahead and throw up the PowerPoint. And again, if you guys, for those who just joined us, if you have questions, we're going to keep everyone on mute just for the PowerPoint section, but if you have questions as they come up, feel free to use them in the chat, raise your hand, we will see them, and we can stop and answer those questions, but we will hold space for kind of a Q&A portion at the end. So again, my name is Ashley Bray. I'm the program director, and this is for our Fall Strengths program, Navigating the New Normal, College and Career Readiness. And we are just coming off the heels, as Carolyn mentioned, of a very successful summer strengths program that was our first program, all virtual, and really wanting for us as a team to meet the moment and still find ways to support those we are committed to serving. So here's a little bit about the program and why we do it. So the need, let's start there. We are really here to help prepare young people with learning and attention issues for their future. I have a background in higher ed and workforce development, and I think there is a huge gap specifically for this population of young people who do have learning and attention issues, and how are they making transitions from high school to college or college to career, and really having the supports and resources available. And so we are really here, next slide, Alexa, to kind of help fill that gap, because 1 in 5 people in the United States has a learning or attention issue. And so it is 25, it's, you know, a large 20% of our population. And it's kind of growing, and it's showing up again in higher ed spaces, in the workplace. And so we really do need to find a way to find that support to support this large percentage of the population with learning or attention issues. The complete, just some stats so you guys kind of understand of, again, why we're doing this work. The completion rate for post-secondary education for students with learning or attention issues is 41%. So that is, as you can imagine, much lower than the rest of the population. And I think a lot of that just, again, has to do with the lack of kind of visible resources and support for those students. The employer rate for working adults with working age adults for learning disabilities is 46%. So we have students who have learning disabilities or attention issues who are struggling to complete post-secondary, and then where they're really struggling to find employment in the working world. And I can only imagine this is going to feel even more compacted in this new kind of virtual space that we're all living in, with, you know, everyone struggling to find employment now. And I think that's why our program is really focused again on helping bridge that gap. So what do we know? We know that young people who learn and think differently are an untapped labor source. So, you know, diverse learners are actually a really valuable additions to organizations and in the classroom, because they do bring different perspectives. They bring different ways of kind of approaching problems, and really bring a sense of creativity. And so we want to tap into that and support those young people in untapping that potential and finding kind of routes to succeed. So what if we brought a novel approach to those who learn and think differently? And that's where we enter in, especially here in this virtual place, our Fall Strengths program. So a little bit about our unique approach. So we're really focused on kind of 3 major outcomes. We're willing to build confidence, because young people who have more confidence, whether it's in school or in the workplace, feel more likely to ask for help. They're more likely to take risk, apply for jobs. It's going to help improve those communication skills. We have a huge piece of our curriculum is a communication piece. And so I'm going to actually have Lori speak on that a little bit later. And we're really looking at developing those transferable skills for academics and the workplace. So those soft skills, those power skills, how are we building those up? How are we refining them and giving young people the space to practice them, so that when they do go into school or work, they are comfortable and confident in those skills, and they're able to kind of transfer them successfully through the different environments and different kind of career journeys they go on. Okay, so what makes us unique is we provide alternative delivery of curriculum for those who learn and think differently. This is a fun little screenshot of our recent summer program. So especially in this virtual space, we are highly interactive. So it's not like what we're doing today, which is I'm not just lecturing at you. It's we really take the approach and really value a collaborative kind of community environment. So we're making use of breakout rooms frequently. You know, individuals are getting into pairs or triads or small groups. They're collaborating. It's often participant led, right? So we're empowering young people to take ownership of part of the curriculum and make it their own and help make it unique with staff there to support it. We've made great use of the virtual breakout rooms this summer, and it's such a great asset into this space to be able to break off into this different little groups throughout the program and address needs one-on-one, individually, be able to kind of talk with people in that smaller setting to help build up that confidence, practice those communication skills. We also like to have a lot of fun in our program. So a big part of our curriculum is the integration of the arts with drama. And so this is not dress up to putting a play, but we use improvisation a lot in our work with our fantastic drama artist, Raymond Caldwell, who's there on the top left of this. And he does a great job in helping our young people with decision making and perspective taking and flexibility. And a lot of his curriculum is done coincides with Monica, our speech pathologist. And so they work together really on our communications curriculum. They're making it fun, they're making it interactive, and we're kind of able to let loose, and it's a safe space, kind of risk-free space for young people to practice those skills. We also have a yoga and mindfulness component of our program. So for us, we believe that having those resources and tools, especially in times like this, to understand how to reduce stress, to be able to have those tools, whether it's at school or a workplace, or when you feel that you're going into a high stress environment, to pull those out and use them. And so we do incorporate yoga and mindfulness. It's very accessible for everyone. We have a wonderful yoga teacher, and we do that about 3 days out of the week during our virtual program. And additionally, we have our wonderful mentor and coach support, which we're going to talk a little bit about later, of what roles they play in the program. So how do we serve people? And so we're really looking on these 5 areas of self, right? So we're looking at building self-confidence, which I talked about a little bit earlier, building self-awareness, which I think is key for young people, especially as we're entering into new career or academic environments, especially as we're showing up in this virtual space together, of building awareness of how they show up, what their tendencies are, and building self-awareness of those strengths and maybe barriers to success, which I'm going to have Lori talk about in just a minute. A huge component of what we do in this space is building self-advocacy. We talk about self-advocacy in the moment of asking for accommodations, disclosure, but also just building self-advocacy for if you need help, asking a question when you see it. Those things are really, really important, and we focus a lot of our curriculum on that piece. Self-efficacy and self-reflection are also 2 other kind of core components of the work that we do. And I think I'm going to throw it over to Lori to talk a little bit about how we're building executive function skills as our Director of Program Support, and what that work looks like in program. Lori, you're on mute.
I think now you can hear me, sorry. What I believe we found in this summer program was that our multidimensional curriculum presented in this virtual format was incredibly powerful. It had a huge impact, and it was because we were able to help build a community of young adult learners who came together and really had many things in common. And a lot of that focused around building executive functioning skills. First, realizing kind of where those challenge areas are, learning how to talk about them, and then identifying, where their strengths were and what workarounds they could apply. So in looking at those executive functioning skills, we looked really at their time management skills, their organization, prioritization, self-regulation, how to get motivated, how to initiate a task, how it might be difficult to complete a task. Those different areas that in the academic world as well as the professional world can be very big obstacles. So we really talked about what they looked like, where they showed up, helped to build that self-awareness in each individual in the program. And by coming together and sharing those experiences, it really solidified their understanding of how they can face those challenges and then what they can use in terms of strategies to work around. We do a couple of different things that help build these skills, and that is we develop a personal profile, and that is a piece where it's really a snapshot of each individual participating in the program. It's helping them to identify their areas of challenge, their interests, their accommodations, learning to speak about those and develop strategies specifically that they can use going forward. So that's a piece that we develop over the course of the whole program, which they can take with them and use to prepare for interviews, to write, whether they need to write a personal statement about themselves, applications. It's an important deliverable that the participants have really found valuable in making and then using afterwards. We also look at goal setting, which is a really important part of our curriculum as well. And that is, we identify what are SMART goals. We teach individuals how to create SMART goals. And then each person in the program is asked to identify an area where they want to develop a goal around a professional or academic goal, and how we're going to have them identify that goal, but then make progress of it during the program. So these are all things that we do along with that time management piece. How do you understand how time is spent during the day? How do you organize yourself to capitalize on the time that you have and accomplish what you need to do? All of these things are learned about through activities, very dynamic activities that we have during the program, as Ashley said, in our larger discussions, but in these breakout rooms where people are working together. And it is an effective way of building these skills and creating routines and practices that then participants take as they go forward, whether it's onto a professional setting or an academic setting. I guess the next slide, please. Let's see what else is there. And again, in learning about all of these things, it's that ability to speak of them, to be able to advocate in the academic setting or in the workplace, in an interview setting, who you are, what your strengths are, where those areas that you may have encountered challenges in the past, but these are the things that I do to compensate for those challenge areas. So it really gives participants a language in which they can speak about themselves, where they can display their competency, their confidence, and then really advocate for why they are going to be successful, whether it be in that work setting or how they can be successful in that academic environment. Next slide, please. And that resilience, I think one of the most powerful experiences of being part of the community, which we worried a bit about before we had our virtual summer program, was how we were going to build the community that we have always so successfully been able to build in our in-person internship program. And this was amazing to watch happen during the virtual summer program, because the bonds built, the shared experiences, the connections, the sense of belonging was pretty remarkable. And that helped others to see what their co-participants had been through and to share experiences and to understand through the growth process and experiences that maybe have not been comfortable or successful, that through these we learn, and they are the building blocks to build that resilience and fill in those cracks along the way. I think that's the end of my discussion. Ashley, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Lori. I will echo what Lori said, that I think the resilience piece was just astounding in the community that we built this summer. And I know for me, I really value that resilience in those young people and being able to translate that into academics or workspaces, and that will serve them for a very long time. As you can see, we have no fun at all in these programs. So we had a crazy hat day, but while we're having lots of fun, we're preparing for success in that new virtual landscape. And this is what our fall program will do. So we're going to focus really on that career and college readiness piece. You know, I think the biggest piece of being able to translate those skills is our professional communications and self-advocacy curriculum. And again, that is delivered by our wonderful tandem team of our drama artists and our speech pathologists. And so this is really integrated into everything we're doing. We're coming back, we're practicing this again. As Lori said, there's lots of places for repetition, a risk-free environment to practice those communication skills, practice those self-advocacy skills. And I think one of the most kind of lovely things about that is watching the peer-to-peer learning in those places. We are working on strategies for effective time management, especially when we're working remotely. I think this change to working remotely has been a struggle for everyone. And so I've even picked up a few good tips and tricks from our summer participants, but we're really drilling down on this. We're helping make those schedules, as Lori said, we're checking in on those schedules, we're readjusting, right? So giving that place to kind of repeat and reflect and see what's working and what's not. And we put together a pretty detailed schedule to kind of help set the standard and set the tone for what the expectations are. And I think this helps kind of give a solid foundation to the time management strategies that our participants will work on throughout the program, and checking in with their mentors about. I think in order to really have that communication piece, be able to translate what you're learning into the academic or work environment, it's really important having an understanding of what your learning styles are, your strengths, and your areas of support. And so Lori mentioned our personal profile is kind of a deliverable at the end that really helps capture this. And this is work that we continue to come back to throughout the program. And we're talking with participants about how to leverage your learning style, right? And so for many young people with attention issues, their learning style might have been seen as a deficit, and we see it here as an asset. And so how are we leveraging that you think differently? How are we leveraging your strengths? How are we talking about your areas of support? That's just as important as being able to identify your strengths, knowing what you need to work on, and knowing the right resources and tools to help you work on those. And we are drilling those down, and we are identifying those with the support of the coaches and the mentors. We're also looking on these very tangible things that are very, very important in this virtual space. So we do a resume workshop. We talked about LinkedIn. Everyone comes away with their LinkedIn profile, especially now that networking is mostly virtual. So we talk a little bit about that with our outside speakers as well. An elevator pitch, a quick 30 to 60 seconds about who you are, what you're doing. It's so important. We're working on that in tandem with our drama artists, cover letters, and professional electronic correspondence. So just kind of the meat and potatoes of working online, and really not just giving the young people that they feel ready, but they have the tools in terms of a resume and a LinkedIn and an elevator pitch. And we provide space outside of program as well for participants to engage with us and continue to work on these. A huge component, and which actually ended up being I think the favorite thing out of our summer program, which always shocks me, is we do several rounds of mock interviews. And I know even for myself, interviewing in a virtual space is a new new world. So how do we look like when we're interviewing, when we show up? So we're talking still about those same communication, professional dress, being able to identify those areas of strengths and areas of support, which is where that personal profile comes in. But how do we translate that into the virtual space? How do we still translate our personality and who we are, and using those communication skills when we're interviewing via Zoom or another platform? And I was just blown away by our summer strengths participants, and we did it a couple of times. So to see the growth in kind of a few short weeks was truly astounding, and ended up being their favorite part of the program. All right. So here's the program specifics. So we are doing 5 weeks of training. It starts September 29th to October 30th. The program hours are 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. We do an hour-long lunch break and are very intentional about some other breaks to kind of give people the chance to sit up and stretch. I know it's hard being at Zoom all day, but also to help kind of give those breaks with attention issues, refocus. We, again, highly interactive. That is a personal kind of commitment I have to the program as well, is making sure people aren't sitting there just listening to people talk. I really want it a shared space, and I really like it when our participants are leading those conversations. And I think those are the best conversations we have. We have over 33 different units of curriculum. I mentioned some ranging from our core of that communication and yoga and mindfulness piece, but also the resume, the LinkedIn, the cover letters, the professional correspondence, all kind of integrated in there, along with focusing on those executive function areas that Lori talked about. We have some fabulous outside speakers. We have wonderful young people who have transitioned into the workplace with a learning disability or an attention issue. And so I think those shared experiences and hearing from other professionals in the field about their experience, what that looked like, especially as we're transitioning into the space, is really valuable. We have a fabulous alumni panel where some of our alumni come back and talk about their experiences in the program, tips and tricks, and that's a wonderful space for participants to engage with our broader community. We are doing pre and post program assessments to measure progress. There are a couple meetings with the mentors, which I'm going to let Carol talk about in a minute. And we are doing weekly staff and self-assessments to gauge kind of engagement. So I'm asking for feedback every day. What's working, what's not working? How can we adjust that curriculum to the next day? Are there accommodations that we need to put into place? Do we need another break? Do we need more breakout rooms? We are really, as a team, trying to be very responsive to implement feedback to really make it as unique and kind of individualistic program as our cohort is. We do final presentations at the end, which is kind of a fun place just to celebrate the accomplishments of our fantastic cohort at the end of program, and share a little bit with our broader community and their communities of what we've been working on. We do also have a career interest project, so something that's very individualized, but that project gives individuals the space to practice presenting on Zoom and kind of taking over as the facilitator, which is very important in these new virtual days. And finally, our end of program deliverables, we do a summary report to kind of talk about individuals' experiences in the program. You have your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your personal profile, and a recommendation if it is appropriate. Before we go on to the additional piece, I want Carol to share a little bit about her and Alexa's role as mentor throughout our 5-week virtual program, because they play such an integral part into the work that we do.
Thank you so much, Ashley. So like Ashley said, each participant will receive a mentor that you will have throughout the program. And so one big thing that I wanted to touch on is each participant meets with their mentor twice throughout the program. These meetings are designed to talk about what Lori was talking about with goals and strategies. What strategies are working, how can we best get towards closer to your goal, things like that, areas of strength, areas of support, anything we can do to help each participant is what we go through in these meetings. Any questions you guys have. Additionally, we also have office hours every Tuesday and Thursday. And so these are not mandatory. These are very optional, but if you choose to, you can sign up for them. And these are another way to ask questions about the program. If you want some more individualized support, we are there. For example, let's say we just went over the resume workshop and you have a question, that's very individual to your resume. You can sign up for office hours and we can work with you then to, really do a one-on-one with your resume, stuff like that. So again, 2 mandatory meetings with your mentor and then also optional office hours. In addition, the mentors are just there for your go-to, if you have any questions at all relating to the program. For example, we ask that the participants come professionally dressed for when we do mock interviews. And so we've gotten lots of questions in the past on, what is appropriate for me to come wearing the next day for mock interviews. Let's say something comes up that you're going to be a couple minutes late to the meeting the next day. That's also a good thing to talk to your mentor about. So anything like that, we're there. And so we always like to say we're the first line of defense, your mentors, for any questions that you guys have. So that is pretty much the roles of what Alexa and I do during the program as a mentor.
Thank you, Carol. And yeah, I think the mentor piece is such a core component of the work we do. And I think what makes us so successful as a program is providing multiple means of communication with participants so they can really access us in any way that they need to. And the mentors really embody that and are there on that kind of one-on-one basis, and participants know that they have kind of a point person to go to if things pop up. So a great resource throughout the program. I am going to talk a little bit about our new optional independent project and portfolio. And so I think this really came out of just participants in our summer program wanting continued support on a very individualized basis. So we have these wonderful 5 weeks together as a community, and we're setting goals and we're talking about our areas of strength, but how are we transitioning that into kind of the next steps? And this is what this optional independent project and portfolio piece is meant to answer. And so it is optional. Let's start there. It is 4 weeks of individualized support. So the dates are October 30th to November 27th, and they're weekly individualized check-ins based on the participant's goal, what they're wanting to get out of this 4-week kind of intensive period. I'm going to let Alexa talk about what that kind of check-in, what that support looks like throughout those 4 weeks. But as I mentioned, it really, I think, especially in these times, helps build the momentum gained during our 5-week program. Participants are coming out of that 5-week program energized and motivated and very directed on their goals. And so this 4-week space kind of helps give participants some more independence to take some more ownership over that, but they have that support of our wonderful BroadFutures team. And we're here with resources and tools as needed. And so really we're kind of flexing of that they're giving the space to be driven, and we're just here to support that in their development. So there's a selection and development of an independent project or portfolio aligned with participants' interests and skills. As you can imagine, this can vary in what it is, and we will be meeting with participants and families on a one-on-one basis to kind of flesh this out and really have a very directed kind of goal for those 4 weeks. Daily individualized support, guidance, and development from the BroadFutures team, and an engagement in the ongoing examination of strengths and areas of support. So this work does not stop at the end of the 5 weeks. We're really going to carry that over, and we're going to really kind of get into the weeds and see how we can support people as they reach their goals. But I want Alexa to talk a little bit about the role of the mentor in this space, and kind of what those interaction looks like, and some examples of the work that Alexa has done on an individualized basis.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. And just to kind of echo what you were just saying, it's really helpful for anyone who wants to build off of the momentum from the program. If you're not sure what your next steps are, we've done ongoing mentoring for people who've been working in the hospitality field and want some help with like time management, making sure they get to work on time. We've helped people search for jobs, help people on any individual projects that they have. It could be personal or professional. So some of the ways that we start off is by building off of the goals that you were working on during the program, like Carol was talking about. So we will have an initial meeting where we will be meeting with the participant, talking about those goals, setting the goals, going over the parameters of the project. So for instance, if your goal would be time management, what we would do as the support team, we could help you create a schedule, kind of block out your time, especially since if you're working from home, it can be kind of difficult to set that up for yourself. We could have like a shared Google sheet so that the Broad Futures team sees what you're working on. And it's also helpful for you to kind of be held accountable so that there's a lot of communication there as well. So we do one weekly check-in call, and that can be going over your different goals, presenting new strategies. We like to make sure that the strategies we've already presented are working, and if they're not, we'll go back to the team, we'll re-strategize. So there's a lot of communication around what's working and what's not, so we want to hear from you. But it also says we have the daily individualized support. So we are always here, just a text, a call, or an email away. Any question that you have, kind of like what Carol was saying, first line of defense. So we're a resource. If anything is kind of tripping you up, we're here. We do have that longer weekly call, but then of course throughout the week, we're always available for any questions that you might have. So that's kind of the broad overview of what this ongoing mentoring independent project would look like.
Awesome. Okay, we are about to wrap up, and I know there's a couple questions, so I think we will get to that in just a moment. But again, this is a great way to build upon momentum and really have that individualized support. And as Alexa said, the communication is pretty seamless. So you do have that dedicated kind of check-in that can always be kind of increased as needed, but you also just have us here as that kind of resource to build upon if there's a question, or maybe if it's you have an interview, to be able to prep for that interview the next day. And so we're really here as that resource. Okay. So this is just a little bit of the overview of our curriculum. And as we kind of mentioned, we've gone over this. So first impressions, verbal and nonverbal, the communication piece, the self-advocacy piece, taking responsibility, working as a team, that's really inherent in the work that we're doing. Mock interviews, disclosure and accommodations in the workplace, very, very important. And then really talking about how we're thriving in this virtual space. We're incorporating leadership and community building, time management, organization, into everything that we're doing. So I just want to kind of share this piece so you guys kind of can get a feel of our very innovative and diverse curriculum. We will go on to the next piece. So again, this is a little idea of what we do, how we incorporate the arts. And you can see the quote at the top, giving people a place to make mistakes without fear. And really, I think our winter intern from 2016 really summed that up beautifully. And Raymond and Monica do such a great job of creating that space where people feel comfortable making mistakes. And that's what we're getting at, right? So it's being able to help practice that flexibility. How do you interact as a team? How are you stepping outside of your comfort zone? You know, constantly pushing yourself to talk about your areas of support that might be needed, to talk about your areas of strength. Sometimes that's uncomfortable as well. But this picture right here is a photo of a graffiti wall we do. So we incorporate graffiti walls in our work, even in the virtual space. And it gives participants just another kind of alternative to express themselves and talk about their strengths, talk about the community that we're building, and it helps really solidify that understanding of the curriculum. I will say, hands down, the arts drama component is everyone's favorite part. Raymond's everyone's favorite part, because the community that is built within those games and those interactions is a really beautiful place for growth and just fun too. So this is a little bit about the arts. So again, I mentioned a little bit about why we incorporate the yoga mindfulness piece, especially important these times. Most of I would say a large portion of the individually served also have a healthy dose of anxiety, right? And I would say probably a large portion of the population has a healthy dose of anxiety right now. And so again, how are we giving young people or people in the workplace or in school the tools to manage that anxiety? So when it comes up, you have those tools, you have the resources, whether it's being able to self-advocate and go ask for help, or maybe it's just a quick breathing technique or using some yoga. It also helps with transitioning, being able to practice that mindfulness piece. Really, we can see seep into the flexibility of our participants, being able to kind of transition, whether it's from a big transition from high school to school or school to work, but even just in that moment in our program, the transitions and the flexibility and kind of going with the flow, literally and figuratively, is a huge asset for our participants. And again, it's just we're wanting to build this toolbox of resources. And I think for us as a team, we really see having this piece of mindfulness and yoga as part of that tool helps with that cognitive function piece, helps improve overall well-being, which in turn helps participants reach their goals, find those successes, and see their strengths within themselves. I think I mentioned we love kind of this learn, reflect, report, repeat process. We are giving space for reflection throughout our program, after every unit, sometimes in the middle of the unit. We'll go into breakout rooms. But it's really important when we're learning new things or we're practicing new things that we're not just giving the space to do those things, but we're reflecting on them. We're reporting them out to the group. So we're getting kind of that shared feedback, that perspective taking piece, and then we're repeating the process. So again, our communications curriculum, the curriculum delivered by outside speakers and BroadFutures staff, we are intentionally giving spaces to really reflect. And I think the importance of reflection is a core component of kind of what we do and what makes participants so successful in this space. So here's just some important dates for you guys. So the first day of program is September 29th. And it goes to October 30th, which is our last day of program and final presentations. The cost, $3,250. We do have scholarships available based on demonstrated financial need. So happy to talk about that if that is something of concern. And then the individual project and portfolio piece runs from October 30th to November 27th, and that cost is $1,050. We do ask, because we are on Zoom, that everyone has access to a computer and reliable internet. And so we will be on the computer. So it's really important that we have that kind of stable connection, as that is our main form of communication throughout the day. And if you are interested, you can sign up on our website, which is www.broadfutures.org. So this is a little bit about important dates. And I think, yeah, so here's some 2 testimonials just to kind of give you a little bit of a taste of how participants and families feel when they come out of program. We, again, are doing assessments weekly, pre and post program assessments. And so we really value the feedback of our participants and our families and are constantly striving to be better, and have had a lot of success with that. And so Broad Futures inspired me to move forward in my life and be more confident and courageous and brave and do things I wouldn't normally do. I owe them everything in the world for that. Again, that confidence piece at the core of the work that we're doing. And then this other one, I had no direction before starting. Now I have job strength, and I know I need to work on taking new skills and building up my confidence. So as you can see, confidence echo throughout piece, and we are extremely grateful for our participants who come back and are part of our larger community. I think that's one of the great pieces about our programming, is that we do provide that community space and spaces for interaction after the program has ended. And love to see the success of our participants. I know there were a couple questions in the chat box, which I will get to. Of the 46% who are employed, how many actually keep a job for a while versus that being a snapshot of folks who may be employed but will likely be fired soon? I don't have data research on how many people who actually keep the job and how long term. I will ask my colleagues, Carolyn and Lori, if they know, but I do know just from my own experience in job coaching, I think the key to kind of long-term success is that self-advocacy piece and asking for accommodations in the workplace. But Carolyn, I don't know if you have numbers on any of that.
So those stats come from the National Center for Learning Disabilities, and they are looking at, permanent employment. So they're looking at people who are on the job and keep the job. Your question about how likely would they be to be fired soon, I love stats and I love data. I have no idea how you would quantify that, people who are likely to be fired as opposed to people who have been fired. I think the important question for our communities is sort of longitudinal studies, which have not been taken in great numbers just because no one's doing the work, right? We do our own longitudinal studies per se of Broad Futures participants. So we've been running programs for 6 years, and we've hovered around that 90% of people who complete our program are either employed full-time, part-time, or in school full-time, or there's a group who's doing both. So in school part-time and working part-time. So we've kind of hovered at that 90%, which is about twice the national stat. But this stat is pretty consistent. It's pretty much been the same. I cannot answer your question. I don't know how to answer your question. I wish I could, about who's likely to be fired soon, other than to say we believe that in stronger education for employers around people with disabilities, that those rates will go down. As far as firings go, and employment will go up. The more we encourage employers to understand that disability is part of the diversity conversation, we have better chance of more successful outcomes for the people that we serve. Does that answer your question? Okay. The other thing I wanted to quickly say while I'm talking is that another way to get in touch with us, you can find all our contact information on the website, but is just info@broadfutures.org. If you put in broadfutures.com or broadfutures.net, it will still come to us, but it is info@broadfutures.org.
Thanks, Carolyn. And I just put that in the chat for everyone, so they have access to it. Who typically participates in this program? Gap year students, high school grads, people of their high school equivalency certificate, people who left college before completing. So yes, we serve gap year students, we serve high school grads. We serve people who have left college before completing. I think for our virtual program, participants have to be at least a junior and 16 years of age to complete in the program. I think that's really where our curriculum is designed for, but it can go up in terms of age. I will say, just from experience in all of our programming, we're part of the Gap Year Association, so we do serve a lot of gap year students. This is one of a great kind of program for gap year students to participate in. We serve in our summer programs a lot of high school grads, and we serve a lot of students who are in college and maybe taking some time off before going back. And I would say, and I forget the number, Carolyn, you can help me with the number, but we have a very high percentage of students who are in school, maybe taking time off and returning to school after the end of the program. And I think that's something we're very proud of, and we're very happy to see with our participants.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just our virtual program is a little more comprehensive age-wise. As Ashley said, we can take juniors in high school up to, this summer we had some people in their late 20s, early 30s who were in the same position as our folks in their mid 20s. When our internship program runs again, we're pretty strict on it's 18 to 26. You have to be a high school graduate. You kind of just graduated, and you can't be older than 26 when you apply to the program. Our percentage of people who have, to answer Ashley's question, who have voluntarily or involuntarily left school, I would say it hovers around 30%. But what we're more proud of is 100% of those folks who have had to leave school after doing our program return to school. So that's a stat that we're pretty proud of.
Thank you. Yes, we had a couple of students who we served in the summer program who are returning back, and very excited for them, and they keep us up to date. No apologies for any questions. If anyone else has any questions, you can throw them in the chat, raise your hand. I'm happy to call on you so you can speak your question. Can students do this and earn high school credit for it? We do not have any, we can work individually with schools around credit, Carolyn. I know we've done that with colleges in the past, but there's no kind of overall certifying this is how many credit units. I think it's a very individualized basis.
Yeah, we've just never had a high school student because we normally, this summer was our first program with allowing younger folks into the program. We do, I would say 35–40% of our college students get credit, and we work, as Ashley said, individually with each college. It's dramatically different from college to college how they allow for it. So, I am totally open to working with an inspired, innovative high school who would give credit for this. I feel strongly this is stuff that actually should be taught at the high school level. We certainly go into certain charter schools and do workshops teaching this type of curriculum, and happy to do that. But we're also happy to work individually. We just don't have any kind of formal arrangements like we do with some college.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes, I know there's usually a summer and winter in-person internship program. Do you anticipate having a spring program this upcoming year if safety permits? Yes, so our winter program runs typically January through the spring. Our winter program is actually 2 weeks longer than our summer program. So it incorporates a lot of that spring. Usually we end about mid-April. We are following CDC guidelines. We are following the guidelines of Mayor Bowser. And so if safety and health departments permit it, and we will implement a program, we are hopeful to do this. But just like everyone else, we are waiting to see. And so, yes, but our fall program, virtual program, is really kind of a great way to kind of get your feet wet and just get some practice in there. So hopefully we will have updates on our winter program soon. Any other questions? And if you guys have questions that you think of after the fact, as Carolyn mentioned, feel free to contact us. You can email info@broadfutures.org. And then again, you can go to our website to get the interest form for our fall strengths program. And I'm always happy to schedule a call with anyone who has any kind of specific questions. I do that frequently. So if there's questions you didn't get answered or just want to talk to on an individual basis, please feel free to reach out and one of us is happy to hop on the phone. Again, if you guys have any questions, we are happy to answer them. You can reach us at info@broadfutures.org. You can find the interest form on our website, www.broadfutures.org. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook to stay up to date on things that we are doing. And any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you guys for spending part of your Tuesday morning with us. And we are here. If you guys have any other questions, have a great rest of your day.